All right, it's November 4th, 2022, and right now in this country, the deep state has totally shown its hand throughout the past 2 years through altering the outcomes of the 2020 elections and pushing the COVID injections that have killed millions of people around the world, and it's all coming out. Scientifically proven, doctors showing what's coming out of the dead's veins, people dropping dead all over the place. It's clear that we are in a war. There's a war being committed against Americans and globally, but as Americans, I'm speaking directly to us as the people of the United States of America, because that's where we are. If you're an American, and we care about the whole world, but a good place to start is locally within our own country, fix our own country, solve the problems here on our turf, and then we can work on the rest of the world eventually. And hopefully people in other countries are standing up and doing what they need to do, and a lot of them are. Also, the borders are being flooded with immigrants on a massive level, and that goes against the design of the Constitution for us to be able to choose who we decide to be countrymen with. Lawful, legal immigration is good when people go through a certain process to become citizens, but to be having the border flooded with people from wherever, with whatever kind of background, with criminal history, and overwhelming the country and the systems of our country when we're not in a place as a nation to sustain that many people and support that many people and the burden that it puts on society. So that's going on. Also, they're indoctrinating in the schools with immoral worldviews, sexualizing children, and it's kind of hard to speak on YouTube or something because a lot of the words will trigger the censorship, so I'm being mindful of that. But there's so much going on right now in the country. There's the immorality, there's the lack of justice in the judicial system, there's the violation of the Constitution through usurping the will of Americans' ability to choose their own elected officials. That is the main reason for this government that we consent to, and a lot of us no longer consent to it. But the whole purpose of the design of the Constitution was to be a system that was consented to by the people, and that the officials in those positions of leadership in the country would be chosen by the people, and that they would serve the people. So the fact that our voice has been usurped since 2020 means that all these politicians, all these unelected, compromised bureaucrats are not the people that we, the people, have chosen in those positions. So that's a major violation of the design of this government. And one of the most basic purposes of it is to be a reflection of the will of the governed. Also, the fact that they've committed a real genocide, and this is very real. The information's out in the open at this point. They're still blocking a lot of it from getting out to the public through the internet, but day after day you're hearing of people dropping like flies and having growths in their bodies and increase in cancer and so on and so forth. I could give you all the details, but if you aren't aware of that already, go do your own research. But the fact that this government has been involved in taking the lives of the citizens also is in direct violation of the purpose of the Constitution, to be a organization that protects the livelihood of its citizens. So that's in direct contradiction to the purpose of the Constitution as well. Those two key points that I just went over, as far as the voting and literally waging war against the American people, those are enough reasons to opt out of this government and realize that it's a weaponized organization being used against the people of America. So what are we going to do about it? The mode of change that the way that we would typically work for change in a scenario like this as a country would be through the voting process and get better politicians, but it's pretty clear that the organization of the United States government is owned by a organization that operates covertly and behind the scenes and lies to the public and interferes with technology, with the people's ability to speak to one another, communicate with one another online through censorship. That is a total violation of our right to freedom of speech. So if we use their methods for change, it can always be interfered with. And a lot of people are looking to the midterms or better politicians to fix the crisis we're in. But I want to let you know, as many other people are aware, that's not the main mode of action that's going to succeed for the future of the American mission of having a free and a fair society where human rights are respected and where justice prevails and where there's morals based on God's design for human morality. So there's a lot of us that are aware of this, and that makes me incredibly hopeful, and hopefully it makes you hopeful, because when there's so many people who are aware of what's going on, we have the potential to unite and see through their deceptions and create a better and a more moral future as a nation, as a whole, if we all come together collectively. And obviously it's not easy to do online right now, but if we have the common vision of separating from the establishment and knowing that they are corrupt and that they are a enemy force, and we choose collectively across this country to separate from that establishment and no longer put our trust in them, but we all band together, hypothetically, across the nation with some common goals, such as coming back under God's authority and looking to God's word for direction in our lives. Just think, if 80 million people across this country turned back to God and started living moral lives and looked to God's word as direction for their lives, for their family, for their interactions with their neighbors and their communities and their workplaces, what kind of effect that could have. Even though there's these assailing forces and there's China involved in the U.S. government, and the U.S. government's involved with the United Nations and the World Economic Forum and so on, if we the people unite under God and we live for God's ways, we live out of love, we live out of integrity, we live out of not going along with practices or worldviews that are immoral and perverse. I won't even go into detail about what those things are, because they shouldn't even be mentioned, although they have to be so that people can be aware. But you know what they're teaching the kids and everything in schools, and just the perversion you see in the corporate businesses of the world, and the race baiting and all that But if all of us as a whole turn back to God and live with God's guideline as our morals for our personal lives, that right there creates massive unity, and we're a force to be reckoned with. Secondly, if we the people decide to start to opt out of these businesses and these organizations and this government system that is opposed to human rights and justice and truth, then that's going to have a massive impact. We're going to be taking our finances out of their system. We're going to be leaving jobs that are coercing their employees to go along with violations of their rights. We're going to be taking our kids out of schools that are teaching immorality. We're going to be building businesses. We're going to be creating, learning again how to produce our essential needs at home, such as farming or shopping with small locally owned businesses, and putting our finances into moral businesses that have our common values. These types of solutions can have lasting impact. And also educating the future generation about what it means to be free and how important it is for the sake of humanity and the future of the American mission for us to understand our freedom and identify with that freedom and remember the original vision that this country was founded upon, to be a nation where people are under God and governing themselves by choosing what leaders they have and what they tolerate within their country. So the Redeclaration of Independence 2022 goes over this in depth, but also there's a compact version on the website, and Americans around the country are signing and agreeing that the injustices that have been committed are wrong and we don't consent to them, and agreeing to begin to collectively and independently separate from the establishment together. So check that out. I'm going to finish up the video now. It's in the link that I'm going to put below the video, or if this is on Twitter or something, click the link, sign it to show your support, and encourage other people to read it and share it with other leaders that you know, your pastors, other trustworthy sources like Christians who you know are patriots, so that we can unite together across this country and get past the censorship and really get the historical account of what has taken place throughout the past 2 years out to the public, so that this doesn't get brushed under the rug and just forgotten about when other political actors and government leaders come out who present themselves as being for the people to deceive the public again. Let this be the generation where these injustices stop by taking action today, signing and sharing, and just taking action wherever God has you to detach from the establishment and build and create a better future, and speak up and talk to people about what's going on in the world, because you have tremendous power, and we all do when we stand united. All right, God bless. Have a good day.